Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fourth installation of the Mindset Makers webinar series, our teacher PD session. I hope you're all having a great week and getting ready for the holidays. We've got a great webinar for you tonight. It's all about the economy, and we're talking with one of our long-term partners who I'm going to actually have Lily introduce. Lily is a longtime staff member of NFTE. She works on our development team, and she has been able to foster this relationship with Intuit to the point where, even though she's leaving, we're still going to be talking with Tamar all the time. So, I'm going to hand things over to Lily and get things started.
Hi, everyone. So like Denise said, my name is Lily. I'm the Director of Development for Strategic Partnerships, and I work with a lot of our partners. And so today we're going to be hearing from Intuit, who has launched Intuit for Education. Some of you may be familiar with it. If not, I'm going to be dropping some links in the chat to be able to access tons of financial literacy content. But more specifically, today we're going to be talking about the economy, so the basics of supply and demand, and how that kind of can impact your students' business plans. And so in a little bit, I'm going to kick it over to Tamar. So we've been partnering with Intuit for the past about 6 years or so, and continue to work really well with them in integrating some of this content into our curriculum. And so at the end of this, we'll also show you where you can find all of the resources from tonight, and send out the links as well, either via Canvas or via the nifty.com website, just so it's easy for you all to access. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce or let Tamar introduce himself and start sharing some of the great content for tonight.
Thanks, Lily. Thanks, Denise. Yeah, Intuit for Education, Intuit, we're happy partners of NFTE. We've been a number of years now, even before I joined the team. Thank you for everyone who's watching and joining right now. Intuit for Education is an initiative from Intuit, the financial technology platform of TurboTax, QuickBooks, Credit Karma, and MailChimp. Intuit for Education is a free and flexible program to teach financial literacy to students and entrepreneurship. I'm going to be walking through today the program, all that it offers, and yeah, discussing specifically the lessons on the economy that you all can use to help prepare your students for their business pitches. But I'll also be showing you all the different resources there, how to use it, and some cool things coming up in the future. Just as I mentioned earlier, this is a free program. You don't have to pay for it. Your district doesn't have to pay for it. And it's accessed through intuit.com/education, or through what I think Lily just dropped here in the Zoom chat, nifty.com/resources/intuit-resources. So it'll be also shared in your NFTE Canvas as well. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to walk through. Here, up here, get started, curriculum, programs, resources, and support. And here is the quick, description of basically what I just said. What I will just call out here, that is important to know. You can look at curriculum here. You can also preview it up here on the right. And there's programs here, Hour of Finance Challenge. If you're a QuickBooks education user, that'll be under the resources tab. Our website will get a design refresh and you'll be able to find the QuickBooks resources easier. But for now, and a lot of NFTE teachers use QuickBooks, you will find the QuickBooks education resources under the resources tab for Intuit Education. So we'll go to preview curriculum here, and we're going to log in as an educator. An independent learner is not your student. An independent learner is like someone who you want someone, maybe one of your customers at your side business. That's what I would direct that login for. But this is not your student's login. The student's login will be invited through the educator platforms, and I'll show you how that works. So we're going to go to educator. And you'll see here that I haven't made an account yet. I haven't signed up. So that's why it says to sign up here. But you can actually access this without having to sign up. I know this again is in Nifty, it's in Canvas. So you're welcome to, if it's easier for you, definitely use that. I just want to make sure you're also walking through the general way that people usually find Intuit for Education. So you'll see here courses, simulations, calculators, and games. These are the four core um, resources of Intuit for Education. The main one is courses, so I'm going to click on that. And there are four courses here. There's two self-paced and two not self-paced, but we call these two guided. Self-paced is essentially what you're going to assign your students to do on their own, like as individual work, as homework, classwork, like on their own. Homework again, for assignments to give like later in the week. That's what self-paced is for. And guided is what you're going to do in class with the students. You're going to have, it's more focused on discussion. It's more focused on, yeah, direct instruction. And so the content is the same, but the way it is presented is different. So I'm going to just go to self-paced personal finance just to show you what I mean. 13 units semester long, and it'll have all these out on here. So let me actually log in now to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to log in. Oh, oops. Yeah. So you'll see here, this is the content. It's pretty comprehensive. We do line up to national standards, Jumpstart and Council for Economic Education. Because we're focusing on economics, I will show you this one right now. Let me go back, actually, I don't want to be too fast. So to tell you, it's self-paced, 2 lessons, 2 hours. Economics will explore the basics of supply and demand. And I'll tell you even how long it is, 46 minutes, 44 minutes. So your students, if you're going to assign this, like up here, you'll assign a lesson, it shouldn't take them more than 45 minutes to do. So then you're kind of like timing out how long this will take for them to do. It'll tell you the learning objectives here, which is great. So if you want to be like very sure this is what I need to give to my students, just check here. And then these are the national standards requirement if it's asked. I will also just call out, we have state standards here. So if you're in New York or Pennsylvania, you can just click here and just make sure that the content is aligned to the state standards for your state. So it'll always start with an intro video. These videos are like a 30 minutes to a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. We have dynamic activities. So there's a writing activity here. There is, let me just pick like a short quiz here. More writing activity, check for understanding. There's a reading activity as well. So we've tried to make this like dynamic, it's different, and easy for the students to follow along, very user-friendly. And at the end, there is a quiz to measure their growth. You will be able to, as the teacher, to be able to, once you've assigned this lesson to your students, to track how they're doing in the class, okay? And I'll show you a video of where you can find that, like how you can assign lessons to your students and track their progress in a bit. But this is just an example of self-paced. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna show you guided. So in the same lesson, let's go to personal finance. I'll go down, economics, basics of supply and demand. And it looks a little different. You can still rate, the learning objectives are still the same, but again, how it's presented is different. So you'll have a lesson plan, you have slides, you have activities, and then you have related content. Okay. So I'm going to open up the lesson plan here. I'm going to open up the activity worksheet here. I'm going to open up the slides here. Okay. So as a teacher, the first thing I'm going to do is look at the lesson plan. Okay. The lesson plan is just for you to see. It goes over learning overview. It's the learning objectives. It tells you the national standards this aligns to. Again, if you want to check the state standards, you can go here, back to the state standards over here. And then it'll tell you the educated materials. So it links to you each material, the calculator that's associated with this, the answer key, the student materials here, the worksheet for the students, and the calculator worksheet for them as well. Just to note, the answer keys need an educator verification to access it. So students can't just access the answer keys, only the teacher can. And we do verify that on the back end. Then you have educator resources that are outside of Intuit Education here linked. So here's from Investopedia, KQED. Yeah, so these are some additional resources if you want to check them out. And then here it has a lesson plan guideline. So I'm gonna like walk through this with you all and do it. So the first is a bell ringer. So you're an intro to the lesson. And you'll have the slide deck. So this is where I'll bring the slide deck. This is the presentation. And it's already designed for you. It's designed for you, it's created for you, and that's great. I will say if you're a teacher who is like an expert in this topic or finds or like, you know, a veteran teacher who knows Finlit, entrepreneurship, economics, you might look at this and say, this is great, but I have my own lesson. I have my own slides. I've done this before. It's not my first time. I don't need I don't need to follow this like slide by slide, minute by minute. Like, thank you, Intuit. Appreciate you, but I don't need all this. What you can do is you can file, make a copy, entire presentation. You can do the same for the lesson plan. Then you can edit it as you want. You can change it. You can add your own stuff to it. You can pull stuff from here to your own presentation, your own materials. We encourage that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And if you're especially an experienced teacher, that is something we've seen often. So for you all, for any teacher, you're welcome to do that. We've really made these presentations in the lesson plan for a teacher who's with a teacher in mind who's new at this topic, it's the first time teaching this and needs some guidance, needs some support. So if you're a new teacher at this is basically designed for you. If you're an expert teacher, be flexible, adapt it how you want. That's kind of the use case. So I'll go here. It says bell ringer slide impact of pricing errors. I'll go here and it's right there. Impact of pricing errors. Imagine you walk into your favorite store, pumped to buy a video game you've been saving up for. When you reach the game, you notice that the game you wanted, which was supposed to be $60, is priced at only $20. Answer the questions below. How would the new price impact your decision to purchase a game? What would you do with the extra money saved? So this is something you would be displaying in the front of the class to your students, and you would ask the question. This is an open discussion. You're not grading the students unless you have like a discussion grade in your class. This is more of a open-ended question just to get them thinking about what this topic is going to be. So you start there, and it tells you even how long to spend on this, 5 minutes. And it even gives you here like an answer you can share, right? So how would the new price impact your decision? I would definitely purchase a game at this lower price. What would you do with extra money? I would spend the extra money on another game, or I'd spend it on a new pair of shoes. So if you're thinking, if you're trying to like find the right answer from the student, students are going to have a lot of creative answers, and that's okay. We don't necessarily want to tell them that that's the wrong answer, but we're trying to get them towards like these answers here. So it tells you here after your students have shared, thank them, let them know that supply in its simplest definition is the amount of things available for people to buy or use. So it gives you even like a description of like what is the takeaway here? What was the point of this bell ringer? What was the learning takeaway from here? Again, this is very like detailed. So it even has like after your students have shared, thank them. A lot of teachers obviously know to thank their students. That's why I'm saying it's for a brand new teacher. We've designed it for that early teacher. But again, you can make a copy, edit this, and take what you want. Then we go to slide lesson objectives. So then we go here, lesson objectives. What are we, what is the point of what we're learning today? So demonstrate how the relationship between supply and demand impacts market prices, calculate change in inflation rates to show the impact of purchasing power, and compare normal and real returns to illustrate how inflation affects an investment's return. So it'll say here, set the purpose. Before transitioning, assess students' pre-existing understanding of supply and demand by asking a few students to answer discussion questions below. What is your definition of supply and demand? So again, we're still continuing the conversation. That's like the opening of this class. What do you know about supply and demand? I think students are going to say that they've heard about it. They've heard about their parents talking about the economy, or they've heard it in the news in the background. Um, so they might be able to come up with some creative answers. I know a lot of times when we do lessons on the economy, it's mostly about inflation. So they may be talking about supply and demand in the context of inflation. Okay. And then let's go to the next. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the Zoom chat. Sorry. Okay, you're just dropping links. Cool. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Lily and Denise. Okay. So then we go into the next slide, defining supply. Okay. Defining supply is going to be a video. So it says here, play the video. The video defines goods and services. Ask a couple students to answer the following questions. So I'm going to play the video now. This is a great way for me to now show you what how a video, what an Intuit for Education video is like. So you get a sense of like the reason why we focus a lot on videos in the platform and how we try to make it engaging and relatable to the students. I'm gonna play here. Please, Lily, Denise, let me know if you can't hear it. Play.
You are a consumer. All that means is that you buy stuff. And economists refer to that stuff you buy as either a good or a service. Think of a good as a product, like a loaf of bread. Products are made out of raw materials, and producers of products buy raw materials. Raw materials are often called commodities, like the wheat used to make the flour that makes the bread. Think of a service as an activity provided by people like construction workers and doctors. Companies can also provide services like cell phone service or banking services. So how do these goods and services get priced? The total amount of a good is measured in units, like the number of loaves of bread sold. The total amount of a service is measured by the capacity to deliver services, like the number of phones the towers can support. Supply refers to the total amount of a good or service that is available to buy. In the bread example, supply would mean how many loaves of bread were available to buy that day. And that supply is affected by something called the supply chain. The supply chain is the process that gets the goods and services to you, the consumer. Any number of things can affect the supply chain. A lot of the raw materials or commodities that are used to produce goods come from other parts of the world. So if there's an interruption to the ability to get the materials, then the ability to produce and deliver finished products to you gets delayed. Weather is a big one that can affect both goods and services. Have you ever had a package delayed due to extreme weather? Or have you ever lost power from a major storm? Being a consumer means more than just buying things. Having an understanding of the intricate dynamics between supply and demand, goods and services, and the supply chain makes you a much more prepared consumer.
So that's an example of a video. I will note that some of our videos do have like a question at the end to prompt discussion. And you can use that video question at the end to prompt the discussion, or you can use your lesson plan to prompt the discussion, or you can have a different question. So most of our videos, I think 60%, 70% don't have a discussion question prompt at the end, but there are definitely some that do. So just keeping in mind of that. And here it'll tell you the lesson plan, going back to the lesson plan, ask a couple of students the questions. What is the difference of supply and demand? So we kind of asked them already, what is your definition? And you're re-asking them, what is it now that you've watched this video? And if they answer correctly, which is possible, some students might have answered correctly the first time, you can ask them if this video showed anything different or like added more complexity to the term of supply and demand or the concept of supply and demand. Then it'll tell you, emphasize to students what that the supply chain impacts supply, and it'll ask you to go to the next slide. What is supply? Okay. So it asks students to read or have a student read it or have a student read information. So you can ask a student to come up and read or to read from their desk. And the same for what is the law of supply. And then there's a slide contrasting demand right here. What is the law of supply? There's a video for contrasting demand. Play the video and then engage the class by asking a few questions. So they're going to watch this video and then we're going to have questions again here. What are some of the factors that impact demand? And these are the answers you're looking for. right? So essentially this continues on like that. We continue with some of these discussion questions. Here we go. I'm going to get to this slide. So we're going to there's a discussion about turn and talk. So it says, read the scenario, describe them below, tell your students to discuss the question on the slide with a classmate. You can circulate around the room and listen to groups discussing their answers. So yes, a lot of our lessons start with the teacher, you talking to your students and having a classroom discussion. There are in our lesson plans and slides, opportunity for students to work together, which is really great. You'll see here there's scenario one, supply. Imagine you and your best friend are running a popsicle stand in the summer. You are very popular and each sell homemade popsicles for $1. If lots of people are willing to buy your popsicle, will you produce more or less? So you're having them discuss that. And then scenario two, demand. Imagine you're at a favorite store and want to buy the same video game for $20. Instead of the price being $20, it was marked incorrectly at $100. That's wild. So how would this impact the demand on your willingness to buy the game? Yeah, I think it's always very interesting. Students come up with very different answers than you might expect. And it's good to, get them to try to challenge some of this like status quo or what you might think as the right answer. So you can tell them like we produce more because we're making more money, or the other answer, we wouldn't pay $100, that's too much. But we've heard students come up with really creative things. So for example, yeah, what if you buy the game and it's marked incorrectly as $100, but it's a vintage game, and you actually find out that this vintage game is worth $1,000? That's interesting. Like you can have them be a little bit creative about this and try to challenge the answer of it. But this is essentially the answer you're trying to get to. The normal person, if it's a normal game that was marked incorrectly, you wouldn't pay $100. And for the popsicle at $1, would you produce more or less? You produce more because you're making money. So it works. Okay. So we're going to continue going. There's a supply and demand chart. So again, following here, read or have a student read it. Then the example, another discussion question, slide, reading the chart. So then there's a worksheet part. So let's go here, reading the charts. Yeah, distribute the worksheet. So I'm going to open up this document now. So this is a worksheet that the lesson plan is asking you to use. So either read the directions or to students, or have a student read them and give them a moment to read it. And then there's an answer key here. So you're going to print out this worksheet, or if your students have iPads or something, you can use that. But the main likely use case of this is going to be printing it out and making copies. You, again, like I said before, you can edit the document if you want. If you want to make any changes to it, you can. But you're going to print this out, give it to every student, and they're going to be working on this in classroom time. You can do this for homework if you want to assign it for homework. I know I mentioned the self-paced lessons is great for homework because you can track on your Intuit Education platform how the students are doing like online. But you might be a teacher that decides, no, I want to print it out. I want to have it physical copy. I want them to turn it back to me. You can do that too. So there's two use cases. You can do it as in-class activity, like for a student to do it individually or in a group, or you can have them do it as homework. So then it will say, yeah, read the directions. So let me just walk through a little bit of this worksheet. Answer the questions based on what you think the chart means. Surplus, having more products available. Shortage, not having enough. There's two charts. And it will ask you some questions here. In supply and demand, pepperoni at prices $4. Is there an extra or shortage? So you'll look at this and you will answer. And it continues on with these questions. And then again, as shared, there's answer keys here, and only a teacher can get the answer key. So you have to do a verification. But once you verify that you're a teacher, you can get an answer key and easily grade the worksheets for the students. Cool. And then we continue going down. So I wanted to call something out here that I didn't mention earlier. There's something that says direct instruction, independent activity. Let's go up here, direct instruction, bell ringer. So it'll tell you in this lesson plan, what is a direct activity, what is instruction. If you want to, for example, like I'm a teacher, I want to scan this quickly and see how much direct instruction this lesson plan is. You can just look here on the left side to see that, because some of the lesson plans might be more direct instruction than others. So if you want to have a day where there's more independent activity, you might want to scan the lesson plan to just check which lesson plan has more independent activity. Cool.
Tamar, I saw a great video there about inflation and how it impacts their student pricing too, or like
This
it could
one?
impact their, yeah. So how does it impact price?
Yeah.
Could you maybe take a look at that one for a little bit for the teachers to kind of see as students
Yeah,
start
of
going
course.
into their business models, they'll have to start thinking about pricing and the cost of things. And
Yeah.
inflation is a really big topic now. So it could even be something that you all start with when the
Yeah,
students start their
absolutely.
pricing.
Absolutely. Again, you can customize it. So yeah, let's play this for a bit.
Balloons get inflated. Air mattresses get inflated. And the economy gets inflated. Inflation is the term used to describe the rising prices of goods and services over an extended time. During inflation, the price of almost everything rises. I'm talking about commodities like metals, agricultural products like corn and wheat, and manufactured products like furniture. And the list goes on and on. During times of inflation, people tend to spend less since goods and services are more expensive. To help stimulate the economy when consumers are spending less, the government may decide to increase government spending. This can be done by giving money to consumers via tax credits or lower interest rates to encourage consumer borrowing and spending. These actions increase the amount of money in the economy. When there is more money in the economy, people have more to spend. When people have more to spend, demand increases, meaning that consumers want to buy a product or service at a certain price point. As demand increases, prices increase and inflation occurs. Another way inflation can happen is through an interruption in the supply chain. Lots of things can interrupt the supply chain, like natural disasters, war, pandemics, zombie apocalypses. Just kidding about the last one. When something interrupts the supply chain, demand stays the same while supply decreases. This causes increased competition for limited goods and services and ultimately inflation. To measure inflation, the government has lists of goods referred to as baskets. Price changes of a basket of goods are tracked over time to create a price index. The most common index used to measure inflation is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI for short. The reality is that inflation impacts all of us. So understanding how and why inflation happens is an important part of being a smart consumer.
Cool. Yeah. So that's a great video to show students before they're preparing or as they're preparing their pitch. And you'll have some of these conversation questions as well here and scenario questions. So, but a scenario question could be, again, adapted. It could be more adapted to the pitch topic that you're working on with your students. So I'd also encourage that as well, making sure that you're talking about inflation. And I think Lily put a great example here, right? Yeah. To help think about, yeah, variable and fixed costs. Yeah, exactly. Great. I also want to call out the calculator, which again, great activity to use with your students. So let's go into, let me see if it can be found here. No, you're going to have to use it in the lesson plan. So let's go down here to the calculator. So there's a calculator worksheet. And then the credit karma inflation calculator. So what I like about this, again, you can use the worksheet. It's the same way the other worksheet was that I showed about using this calculator to do the worksheet. Just scrolling down here so you can see the different scenarios. Or you can use a worksheet for the purposes of getting your students prepared for their business plans and pitches. So you'll see here, this is an inflation calculator. Your money from initial year would be worth in final year. So let's say, yeah, this amount is $200 for, I don't know, like wood planks for houses that we're building, sustainable housing. And then we buy it in 2020, let's say. Let's see the raging. And then 2024, just so they can see that in 4 years, it increased 31%. I know the last 4 years, inflation has increased a lot. So let's try to do something different. Let's do like 2010 to 2014 and see how much that changed. Yeah, $217. But you want your students to be prepared, like that if, okay, I'm allocating $200 to buy wooden planks to build houses in low-income communities, or sustainable housing in low-income communities. And I have $200 set aside, or let's say more realistically, $20,000 set aside for these wooden planks. Building houses take time, and you might need to get permits, regulations. So by year 2, by year 3, that wooden planks now cost more money than you had anticipated when you first started. So then the price has changed and your budget has changed. So that's an example of like a scenario you can talk about with your students on how inflation is going to affect it and how they need to be adaptable in their business plans so that they're prepared for those things, that risks that you can access it. If you want to say like great lesson plan, amazing, we want the calculator. So I'm going to go to calculators right here and just find it, inflation calculator. What I like about this, you just have to copy. I'm going to drop it in the Zoom chat and anyone can access it. You don't need to make an account to access this. You can share it with your students and they can play with it. They don't need an account to access it. Anyone can just go on and use this. I will tell you that students love playing with the calculators. They love punching in numbers, seeing the differences, and you want them to do that. Give them some time to just play around the calculator and put in different numbers because they're always amazed what they find, what the result is. And you want that curiosity. You want the students to feel curious and to talk about it with their classmates. So give some time for them to do that. There are some activities at the bottom of each calculator for students to practice different things. And then there's answers as well. So these are just like for students to just do it on their own. They can use that, but they can also do their own numbers too. Yep, exactly. And then here, yeah, these are all the calculators. So there's a savings calculator, inflation calculator, compound interest calculator. I think a lot of these are going to be useful for your students as they develop their business plans. Great. Okay. So I know I talked a lot. We have about 10 minutes. I'm going to go through this okay, let me exit these out. Okay, and let's go back to the economics unit. So I mentioned there's basic supply and demand. There's also economic cycle here. So how inflation impacts savings rate, exploring your relationship in the economy worksheet. Again, similar setup. There's a lesson plan. There are slides here as well. And this talks about, if we go back to the learning objectives, it'll tell you this is about the relationship between inflation and interest rates, prove how saving with I-bonds can protect against inflation and protect purchasing power, and evaluate the positive and negative impact of inflation and interest rates on personal life, real life personal finance scenarios. So this is another example of like, okay, we've addressed with students that inflation could be a risk as we're developing our business plans. And how do we now address it? Do we just sit and be like, oh, well, okay, that's it. Inflation is going to happen. We're going to just need to get more money. That's one way. But we also can just understand how the economy works and understand supply and demand. And this unit could be really helpful in that. So gonna go here to the presentation. It'll talk about impact of increasing costs, lesson objectives, comparing interest and inflation rates. So let me actually play this really quickly. Oh, there's not is there a video click here? Should be. Okay, I'm gonna check that in a second. Yeah, let me know if Lily or Denise, if either of you can, if when you go on that slides, you can play that video. If not, I'll just put that into our ticket. But yeah, there's scenarios here. Borrowing with low interest rates can help you save on paying back money over time. There's the discussion you can have with your partner, and then exit ticket. Oh, I didn't mention exit ticket. This is a good time to talk about it. So what we have at every presentation is a bell ringer and an exit ticket. Bell ringer is, again, open discussion. Students don't need to write it down and answer and give it to you unless you want them to. But what we really do want is an exit ticket. So students will have to answer basically what this question is prompting them like what you learned today. So What are two things you should be aware of when saving money, preparing for the inflation in the economy? Again, great question when you're helping students prepare for their pitches. And so you want them to write down their ideas and send it to you, or give it to you, like drop it off on your desk while they're walking out of class. And you can check it like, okay, if my students got it, my students listened. If they didn't, we gotta try it again. We gotta go back and see what's going on. If you have the time, I know not all teachers have the time in their day. And if not, that's when we have to assign homework. And that's where the self-paced, going back here, the self-paced comes in. It's like, hey, I looked at your exit tickets. I don't think you all get this. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign homework. So you're going to assign the lesson for them to go over it in class. So we can watch the videos here. But Lily, Denise, were you able to play any of the videos? Okay. Sorry.
Yes.
You
I
did?
got it. Sorry. It is in the lesson plan. For whatever reason on the slide, it's not showing up, but it is in the lesson plan. So I'm just putting the link hopefully in the chat
Appreciate
here
it.
for everybody.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna put a ticket in. Sometimes happens, technology, it's all good. But thank you for that. So let me just play a video, for example, earnings comparing interest. Yeah, this is the video I wanted to share with you all to play.
How much is $1 worth? I promise I'm not trying to trick you, but the answer to this question can get pretty complicated. Okay, let me ask this instead. How much can your dollar buy you? You'd probably say not much, maybe a box of candy. But what happens if the price of that candy goes up to $1.29? Guess no one is getting any candy. Or how about this? What if you can still buy the candy for $1, but the size of the package is smaller? That's inflation. Over time, the prices of goods and services go up, and inflation makes that dollar worth less tomorrow than it is today. And that's what purchasing power is all about. Purchasing power is the number of goods and services that money can buy. Here's what you need to remember. Inflation, which is when the price of things increase over time, will cause the money you're saving to lose purchasing power. In simpler terms, you have a certain amount of money, and so when prices rise, the number of things you can buy with that money decreases. So basically, you need to save more money because you'll need it in the future, or find a savings account with a higher interest rate. Interest rates are the amount of money that your money is making for you while it's being securely stored in the bank. So if inflation is on the rise, keeping your money in a savings account with a high interest rate can ensure that your money is still making enough money to combat the rising prices. Now that you know more about how inflation and purchasing power work, I encourage you to take a closer look at the things you normally buy. Are the prices going up? Can you remember what the price was 2 years ago? It's important to know how far your money can go.
Yeah, so some of these videos, as I mentioned earlier, prompts you with some questions afterwards that you can use. But I really like that video. And I think it's a great tie-in to some of your work that you're doing with your students on their business plans and to prepare for their pitch. I will say, I know Denise dropped the YouTube link. All these videos are YouTube link accessible. So let's say you're like, I really like that video. I want to share it earlier. I don't want to wait to do it in the economic cycles lesson, like in that lesson. Again, this is all customizable and editable. So I can just go here, click the YouTube link, and drop it into my own lesson plan that I create for myself, for my students. So they're all on YouTube as well. Okay, he didn't look so good in that picture. Okay, so now we're gonna go here. So video protecting from inflation. I think this is a good one on having your students think about like strategies to prepare for inflation, because that's essentially what you're trying to help here with creating some safeguards for them. So let's watch this one.
Borrowing money from a friend can get a little sticky, but guess what? Companies and the government want to borrow money from you. And it's legit. When you buy a bond, you are lending money to a company or government, and they are agreeing to pay you back on a specific date. And the great thing about bonds is that the money you lent is gaining interest. It's making money. The company or government that sold you the bond will also make interest payments to you twice a year. This is their way of showing they appreciate your willingness to lend them the money. But there's a problem. While you might be happy with that interest payment today, it could lose value over the course of that 5-year period due to, you guessed it, inflation. Because inflation causes prices to rise, the original interest rate of your bonds might not be that valuable to you over that 5-year period. You might want more interest for your willingness to lend your money. That's why the government put out a type of bond called a Series I bond back in 1998. The Series I bond was created for one reason: to protect investors from inflation. So why not just buy as many I bonds as you can? Well, for one thing, the I bond's rate of interest could change. Also, if you need to withdraw your money early, there are fees and penalties. And finally, there are limits on how much you can invest into them. All things considered, the I bond will have a higher interest rate, and they're issued by the US government, which makes them a safer investment. You've now got some basic information.
So I know, like, imagine your students are presenting and they're like, we're gonna get I bonds. Like, that's gonna be like blowing every judge's mind. They're gonna like, what are you talking about in I bonds? Like, that's what you want. You want to trip your, no, I'm just kidding. You want to, be able to command expertise in I bonds and how it protects with inflation and how you get money from investors. So really great, like some knowledge drop right there that you and your students can talk about. So there's more here. There's videos on contrasting recession. So preparing for a recession, strategizing for your future. So I really, really like these units as a way to help prepare your students on thinking about how they protect their business plan, how they're preparing for risk, and how they're preparing for the changes in the economy, because it's going to happen. I know right now our economy is growing, and the main conversation is inflation, but we know economies are cyclical. We know at some point there will be a recession, and hopefully it doesn't affect too many people. But from a business standpoint, from an entrepreneur standpoint, a lot of these changes in the economy affect small businesses a lot, like disproportionately. And so we want to make sure that we're preparing our students to learn about this and be able to present about it with the command and expertise from some of the content here in Intuit for Education. So that's pretty much all I'm going to share with you today about the content. I will call out here, there are simulations. I always got to do this, simulations of Intuit real world tools. So you can use these as well to just enhance learning. There's some units here, the calculators and some games. I mentioned earlier that there is a video on how you can invite students to like assign a lesson to a student, excuse me. So I'm going to just open up where those exist. So this is the educator community. You have to make an account. Again, educator community is here. You have to make an account, and it is under the professional development tab, tutorial videos. And if you want to assign activities, assign individual activity, you can do it here. And you can also create a class here. So you can watch any of these videos to help set you up in the platform. I also want to call out that we have something called Hour of Finance. This is our financial literacy challenge and game that we do every year. This will be under programs. You can look here, Hour of Finance. It's a 1-hour program that you can do in your class. This is something you can do. This one you can do all year round if you want. It's a great game with lesson plans as well. And you can also do the challenge, which is every April. And it's coming up this year, 2025, the next challenge. So I wanted to make sure that you all see that in the programs tab here. I think that is it.
Could you tap into the educator community real quick too?
Yeah, sure. What did you want me to show you here?
The educator
It's on the side.
community was on the
Yeah.
side, just so they know they can ask,
Yeah.
you can ask other
Right here.
educators questions there
Right.
too.
Yeah. Under resources. So if I go back here to this homepage, well, I'm on the homepage already. Sorry. So you go to educator community right here under resources tab, and it'll prompt you to log in or make an account. It's gonna be a different account login than you use for the Intuit for Education curriculum. I know it's complicated, but you make an account, 2 minutes, and then you have access to the community as well. We do post here on even like job postings, but we post here on just questions about Intuit for Education curriculum, teachers asking about like different lessons in the platform. So it's all here. So this is a great place to also ask us questions if you have any issues. And then the tutorial videos, again, is up here under professional development tab, just tutorial videos.
Great.
Cool. Great.
Thank you so much, Tamar.
Yeah, of course.
We are right on schedule. I appreciate you being able to show our teachers all of these resources. I think a lot of times, it's there, but it's not necessarily showcased enough for them. So we really appreciate you coming in this evening and being able to do that for us. We're now going to open it up for just questions across the board. While you have an opportunity, teachers, to put your questions into the Q&A bar, and we'll kind of pull them from there. But while you do that, we do have some initial questions for Tamar to kind of get a little bit more information from him and hear a little bit more about kind of his role at Intuit and what kind of partner they've been to us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I guess the first question for you is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Intuit, and your role within the organization?
I was muted. So I'm from Virginia. I'm from Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. I come from a background in international development and workforce economic opportunity. So a lot of what I did before Intuit was focused on essentially how we help people just have the opportunity. So I really focused a lot on not a skills gap, because a lot of people I work with from disadvantaged or under resource communities did have the skills, they just weren't recognized for them. So we focus a lot on the opportunity gap there. And I think it was a great, transition to come to Intuit, because we focus a lot on small and medium-sized businesses, building their livelihood. And a lot of these small businesses are also investing in their community, and they're having a shot at having a successful life for themselves and their family. So I think a lot of them understand the opportunity gap and have been able to overcome it and be able to achieve that opportunity. So it's been a great time coming into it. And I manage partnerships at Intuit for Education. I've been doing it for about 3 years. Nifty is one of the partners I'm happy to work on. And essentially with Nifty, it's been really great because of the focus on supporting communities that have been, I want to say, under recognized is the term I want to use, or these communities that don't have access or haven't historically had access to this curriculum and this wraparound support from an organization to build entrepreneurial skills, to have an entrepreneurial mindset, and to start a business. So it's a great tie into its mission as well, empowering prosperity around the world, and it's something that I care about as well. So I hope that answers that question. I don't know if I went
Yeah,
over.
lovely. It does indeed. I guess any questions from our audience before we take the next question? Make sure the Q&A. Okay. How about you tell us, how does the market in your specific industry within Intuit and educational resources and applications influence like the Intuit's business model, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think I understand this question. I so Intuit, I really see partnerships helping with scaling any company or business. Uh, Partnerships is supposed to enable you to do something that you yourself cannot do on your own. And it's supposed to help expand your reach into communities and areas that you yourself couldn't do on your own, or would take an insurmountable amount of resources, and there's maybe a lack of expertise to do it. So for example, if Intuit wanted to get into the business of horticulture or agriculture suddenly, right, we would need to partner with someone that has expertise to do that. I think what's great with working with Nifty is Nifty has expertise in entrepreneurship, as does Intuit, but teaching entrepreneurship in classrooms is very different than something that we do, and it's not something that we need to be doing. So that's why the partnership really makes a lot of sense working with Nifty. And with in general with Intuit's business model, we just, for example, announced a partnership with Amazon, not my team, of course, but with another team in QuickBooks to be able to access the Amazon, like QuickBooks to access Amazon reseller business and all that. And that's going to help increase usage of QuickBooks and Amazon reseller business. And so they're tapping into customer bases they wouldn't have before. So if you're talking with your students about, planning their business, I think I've been to a lot of judging of student competitions from Nifty and others, and they rarely mention partnerships as a business strategy or a go-to-market strategy. And they really should be thinking about it more as its own domain to learn about. So there's partnerships classes in universities, like when people do their MBA or marketing. Our team, like half the time we're doing marketing partnerships. So there's a lot of uh, uh, emphasis on partnerships when you're in a company, but not enough learning about it before you get into the company.
I appreciate you bringing up that point. It's a very solid point. I've seen the partnership that Intuit has had with us, and it's allowed us opportunities to kind of grow in certain areas as well. So it's that, beneficial to both sides kind of aspect of it. And you're right. I don't think our students necessarily think about that when they're thinking about economies of scale and how can they do something for their market, but not necessarily within their own availability or resources to do. So definitely look, that's part of the economy as well. So I do appreciate you answering that. And then I guess we have, I'm gonna push it to one kind of more personal questions actually. Um, if you met your 16-year-old self and you're allowed to say 3 words, what do you say?
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't really thought about that. I don't know if I have like 3 words I would say. I'm really bad at these kind of questions. I'm so sorry. But I think what I would try to say as short as possible to my 16-year-old self is um be adaptable in so many words, or be curious and be adaptable. I think at 16, I was really fixated on wanting to do one certain thing. I was like, this is what I want to do. I know I want to do this. And I was like, there's no way I want to do anything else. And it's okay. Things change, life happens, and you're gonna have to adapt and you're gonna have to build a lot of different skill sets. And you want to do that. So I've learned now that I don't like, I think it's our economy is really based on you building a skills like a specialty and expertise in one skill set. It's kind of like how capitalism works. And so now I actually like that I have different skill sets, and I also understand the different skills I have. Like empathy is a skill, communication is a skill, messaging is a skill. These are skills that are important and can be used for different trades. I think when I was 16, I was like, I need to, like, let's say if you want to be a director, I need to just be really good at this one thing, like film editing, and I'll be an amazing director. But if you want to be a film director, there's a lot of other skills I need to build and learn than just like know how to be a great editor. I've seen people who are great editors or great engineers, and their careers have stagnated because they haven't built other skills that are really important, like core competency skills, communication skills, teamwork skills, right? So they hit a plateau at some point earlier than normal. So I think what I would try to emphasize to my younger self is be adaptable, like be willing to learn new skills, and yeah, be curious. Like that.
That, that's great advice. And you said it in 2 words.
Yeah, there we go.
So adaptable, definitely. Adaptability, flexibility, definitely one of those entrepreneurial mindsets that we try to push with students. And then lastly, before we kind of wrap things up, I would ask, finish this sentence. Nifty is.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Okay. Nifty is a wonderful organization that is really passionate and committed about helping every student achieve their goals, meet their potential. I've met some of the students that Nifty works with. I've seen a lot of the passion that your teachers, that your Nifty administrators, organization members really care about the students a lot. So Nifty is a team and a community of people who really care about one another.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Really
course. You're gonna
appreciate
use this on like your blog? It's just the quote. Happy. No, it's great. This was great. I love this.
Oh, well, do you have any other words to impart on us? I'm going to actually hand it back over to Lily to kind of wrap it out with you because you guys have such a great partnership. But
I appreciate
teachers,
it.
like we said, all these resources are available to you both on our Nifty website, on Intuit's website, in the Canvas application that you have for your courses under the Teacher Hub. So keep that in mind. You can look for these resources. If you need any other information, please reach out to us. And I'm going to turn things back over to Lily for her to wrap up, which is probably going to be her final webinar with us. So I'm not going to cry, but there you go, Lily.
Never
Thank you.
say never, never be so finite. But yeah, thank you so much, Tamar, for sharing that. I know that there's a lot of resources that we could have shared, but those videos that you shared are really important. And teachers, we dropped in the comments, but I think when we post this on Canvas and share this with all of you, you can see how some of these topics relate back to the economics of one unit section. Have the students play with the calculators, talk to them about how inflation really can affect their pricing model. So thinking about now, but also thinking about a year or 2 years from now, will that pricing model need to change? And what are some things that they can consider, right? We want to make sure they're safe proofing or safeguarding their business models as they work on them. And that's the whole way we think, right? Flexible and adaptable as they build their business plans. And that build, measure, learn cycle is going to be really important for them too when they start thinking and taking into consideration the economy in this way. So I hope this was really helpful. And I just want to thank Tamar, and then teachers, please reach out to Denise, reach out to your program managers. If you still need support kind of reaching out to us or getting some of these resources into your classroom, and do with them what is best for you, right? So as Tamar said, they're built to be flexible. So if you are just starting out, you can use it as is. If you are more well-versed or your students have done this already, but you want them to practice or you want them to use the calculators, feel free to use that as well. So thank you all for joining and for watching, and reach out to us if you need anything. That's all. Thanks.
Good night.